Hello, I'm Steve and welcome to Carers in a Care Home podcast. In today's video, I'll show you how you can write and complete administering medication to individuals reflective account for your SVQ Level 3. Please make sure to like, subscribe and share for the upcoming videos. You can start by writing, today's piece of work is a reflective account about administering medication to individual. Remember, here you can write your name, here you can put the date. And make sure to ignore the two right columns, performance criteria and knowledge understanding, as this is where your supervisor are going to be marking your reflective account. You can start by work in a residential care home as a support worker. The care home caters for people with various disabilities and learning difficulties. Some residents have additional health needs, such as epilepsy or diabetes. As a support worker who has been trained in administering medication, it is my responsibility when assigned to administer medication to allocate residents. And you can say, this is a very responsible position and one which I take very seriously. Here you can reference SSC Code of Practice section 3.10. Recognize and use responsibility, the power and authority I have when working with people who use services and carers. You can continue like this. Recently, I worked on early shift where I was one of the two people allocated to administer medication that day. Myself, my initials and colleagues so and so. Here you can put the initials. This meant that for the majority of my shift, my chief responsibility was administering medication. This meant that I could give the task the required attention without being distracted. I also ensured that there is less chance of harm happening to adults at risk as defined, add reference, Adult Support and Protection, Scotland, Act 2007. And continue. Firstly, I went to medication room. My organization was meeting its statutory duties by storing the medication correctly. The medication room was temperature controlled with an air conditioning unit to ensure the room does not become too hot and spoil some medicines. Other medicines were stored in the fridge as required, such as antibiotics and eye drops. The medicine room was locked with keys only available to allocated staff. Each resident has their own named cabinet within the room. Their confidential medication administration records are kept within these individual locked cabinets in compliance with the Data Protection Act 1988. I maintained confidentiality by not discussing customers' medication with other customers or anyone else unrelated to their care, apart from their next of kin. Here, add reference SSC Code of Practice section 2.3. Respect confidential information and clearly explain my employees' policies about confidentiality to people who use services and carers. My first duty was to wash my hands as a part of good infection control measures, reference Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. I then read the medication administration records MAR sheet for each individual. The MAR sheet's records are used to ensure compliance with the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971 and the Controlled Drugs Supervision of Management and Use Regulation 2013. They also prevent drugs from being misused, causing harm or being obtained illegally. Here you can add that I looked at Mr. So-and-so, put their initials, MAR sheet, which stated 20.5 milligrams of flumpotixol to be taken in the morning. You can also mention, I counted how many tablets were in the packet. For example here, 52, and popped out 2 of the pills straight into the medication cup without touching them to avoid cross-contamination. I then recorded on the sheet that there were 50 pills left in the box, and this was countersigned by my colleague. We repeated this process for other customers' medication, then left the medicine room, locking it behind us to ensure security and client confidentiality. Then you can say, I went to give Mr. So-and-so his medication in the lounge. It could be anywhere. I greeted him and explained it was time for his medication. In the morning, this includes 2 of 0.5 milligrams of flupentixol, which he takes every morning. It helps regulate his schizophrenia. I asked Mr. So-and-so politely if he likes his medication. Remember to reference SVQ Code of Practice Section 3.1. Promote the independence of people who use services and empower them to use and exercise their rights. He said yes, no problem. I asked him to tell me his name and date of birth while I was consulting the marksheet. I also checked his photo and details to confirm I was with the correct person. This example can only be applied in a hospital. You can continue by writing that I also checked I was giving him the correct dosage oral and the correct time. The last time he had received his medication was 8:30 a.m. previous morning, so I knew he had not yet received today's dose and would not be overdosed. I then put the cup on his hand for him to put up to his mouth, as this is how he prefers to take his medication. I observed him swallowing the medication to make sure he had no adverse reactions. I then signed the marksheet to indicate that this dose had been successfully administered. Here, please add reference of Health and Social Care Standards, Section 2.23. If I need help with medication, I'm able to have as much as control as possible. On another occasion, Mr. So-and-so accidentally dropped the tablet out of his cup while trying to bring it to his mouth. I returned the dropped tablet to the medicine room and put it in a designated box for safe disposal at the pharmacy. This ensures compliance with the health and safety legislation, COSH Regulation 1999 and Hazardous Waste Regulations 2005, and SVQ Code of Practice Section 3.8. Keep to my employer's health and safety policies. I noted this event on his marksheet and gave him replacement tablets, which he then took successfully. When Mr. So-and-so finished swallowing his medication, I wrote the time and my initial on his marksheet. I also recorded that one tablet had been sent for safe disposal. Next, I moved around the lounge to give another person so-and-so initials medication. I stayed within the side of the trolley at all times to make sure no one could approach the medicine trolley without my knowledge. Mr. So-and-so takes baclofen 10 mg twice a day. This is a muscle relaxant which eases symptoms of multiple sclerosis. There were special instructions on the marksheet stating baclofen was to be taken with just after food. Mr. So-and-so had just finished eating his breakfast, so this was correct time to administer this medication. Even though I'm familiar with Mr. So-and-so's medication, I checked the marksheet carefully in case the doctor had changed his medicine since the last time I assisted him. You can also add, after checking his identity and obtaining consent from Mr. So-and-so before administering his medication, I held the medicine cup to his mouth, carefully tipped the tablet into his mouth, then held a small cup of water and assisted Mr. So-and-so to drink and swallow the tablet. You can also include, on one occasion when preparing Mr. So-and-so morning dose of baclofen, I noticed that the tablets were almost finished. I then called the pharmacist to inform that this medicine needed replenished. Here are the reference of SVQ Code of Practice Section 3.4. Tell my employer or the appropriate authority about any resulting operational difficulties that may get in the way of providing care. Finally, you can include, at the end of medication round, I signed my initials on the shift allocation sheet and my colleague so-and-so also signed to witness that information was correct. I then returned each person's marksheet to their individual cabinet. I then locked the medication room door behind me to ensure customer confidentiality. Then I passed the keys to the next medication team at the end of the shift. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Goodbye. And good luck with your SVQ.